That question, raise your hand if you'd like on that side.
Good morning, Steve.
How you doing, Mark?
Two questions. One, just wanted to see if you could talk about Kuminga in terms of his progress from the day he walked into now, and when you're drafted that high and don't play a lot early, did you sense any frustration early from him?
Yeah, I mean, we talked to him about it from day one. Really, as camp started, he was in a unique position being drafted to a team that was going to be able to contend, whereas pretty much all of his fellow draftees were going to go into situations where they were going to play right away. And talked about how difficult that would be, but that there are some benefits, being mentored by veterans who are legends in this league and can really help him. And, the growth process being maybe more organic than it would be rather than, just being thrown out onto the floor, having to earn minutes and understand why he was in certain situations, not in others. So those conversations all happened early, but it didn't mean that he was happy about it, nor did I want him to be happy about it. I want guys who want to play. So that was all part of the early process. And he also came in probably more raw than some of his fellow draftees because he just had the 10, 12 games in the bubble. That was it. A lot of the other guys had a full year of college, 30, 35 games, whatever it was. So it took him a couple months to catch up to a lot of the things that we were trying to do. And then once we felt like he was ready, we started to play him and he took off from there. And I think he's had a great rookie season. Really excited about where he is now compared to training camp.
And as you guys proceed in the playoffs, is there any chance that you revisit Wiseman?
Wiseman?
Yes.
No, he's not going to play. Yeah.
Steve, the small lineup, Curry, Thompson, Poole, Green, and Wiggins, which did so well the first two games against Denver.
One with the nickname, or no?
Yeah,
there's no longer a nickname.
Funny how that's evolved, huh? I mean, it was so effective those first two games against Denver, and then I think game two in Memphis, I think it was like -11 in two stints. What does that? I mean, you guys didn't shoot particularly well, I realize, in that game. Is that what do you sort of need more from that lineup? What's changed, do you think?
Our opponent, so it's a different series. I think every series presents its own challenges. And so, this series is really important that we are able to rebound and compete physically, knowing, how big and athletic Memphis is across the board. So, it's a lineup that we can absolutely play and absolutely can have success. But it's not a 25-minute lineup.
But you're confident it can be effective even against Memphis,
Absolutely.
And does the equation change at all if Steven Adams plays more or plays? I mean, he's been out obviously the last two games. He's such a big body and such a good rebounder.
Sure. Yeah, a lot changes at both ends. And so we have to be prepared for that. And, Steven's a hell of a player and a guy who's been in the playoffs, for a decade straight, and gives them, even more offensive rebounding, screen setting, physicality. So got to be prepared for everything that's coming.
Coach, in the Denver series, you went out of your way to talk about Jordan Poole's defense. Where has he evolved defensively, and what do you need from him the rest of this series without Gary?
Well, I think one of the things he did well in the Denver series was defend without fouling, which allowed our flow to happen. And it's been a process. We've talked to him all year about it. He's so competitive that he doesn't want to get beat. And so there are times where he commits a frustration foul rather than, just going vertical, showing your hands, making the guy make a tough shot, and living with that, because in those circumstances, we're taking the ball out and we're going. And the fouling it's been an issue for our team all year. We're, near the bottom of the league. So it's on every player to defend without fouling. But for Jordan as a young player, this is something he can do better. And I thought he did a much better job of it in the Denver series. But then the other night he reached a few times, picked up his 5th foul with 10 minutes left, and that changed the game a little bit. So he's got to get back to that concept.
Hey, Steve, perhaps nobody plays with more joy in this league than Steph, but if there's a close second, it might be Ja.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see from Ja that kind of reminds you of Steph in that sense?
I love watching Ja play more than I love coaching against him. He's a brilliant player, but he plays with freedom and joy, and you can see how much he loves the game. He's fantastic. I think it's infectious with his teammates, with the crowd. Very similar dynamic to Steph. They're obviously very different players, but that joy and freedom that you see with Steph is there with Ja as well.
Steve, is there any concern about Clay, especially now with Gary out? He's going to have to play more minutes. He played 41, just coming off the injury and everything else. Are you starting to see, especially in the second half, how he hasn't been shooting as well the first 2 games? Do you monitor that a little bit, or is there any just concern about putting too much on him?
No, there's no concern about that. There's a reason we ramped him up slowly when he came back in January. And there's a reason he didn't play any back-to-backs. We wanted to make sure we took our time with him. Our training staff feels great about where Clay is. There's no back-to-backs in the playoffs. I think the shooting stuff, to me, is not related to fatigue. So I think everybody feels good about where Clay is.
I guess one thing lost in yesterday's eventful day, or newsy day, I guess, for the Warriors, is Andre, the update on him and how he's progressing, but still going to be reevaluated 1 week. What are his spirits like at this point? And also, what does he just provide for the team, even though he can't be playing, but just his presence alone? Yeah,
it hurts him to not be able to play, but this is the reality of where he is in his career and the mileage he has on his body. He's done so much for this organization. He wants to do more, but the reality is his body hasn't held up. We're hoping to get him back. As we said, we'll reevaluate in, 6 days from now. But he's still a really valuable voice in the locker room, mentor to our younger guys. He's been just a great addition to our team this year, on and off the floor, despite the fact that he hasn't been able to be out there as much as he would have liked or as we would have liked.
I know defense has evolved over the years to everybody switching. You guys did that a lot with a lot of success, obviously, in your finals run. But when you played, I imagine it was fight through screens, right? Why is that not? You hardly ever see that, not just you guys, but throughout the league. Is that practical still for teams that defensively fight through screens rather than constantly switching?
It's still something that some teams do. I think as the league has evolved with more three-point shooting, switching just makes a lot more sense now than it did, 20 years ago. You got more and more players who are 6'9", who can, step out and shoot a 25-footer. Those players didn't really exist, 20, 25 years ago. The rules changed in around 2001, 2002, somewhere in there, where zone was then allowed. Prior to that, you couldn't play zone. It was basically illegal defense. So the rule change and the trend in the game with more three-point shooting, more pace, I think has led to more switching.
And I guess my follow-up to that is when players like Ja, sort of search for a switch they want, right? Defensively, how do you sort of counter or adjust that because it seems like not just Ja, but a lot of players who are skilled one-on-one can sort of find the switch they want.
That's the name of the game these days. You watch every playoff series. People try to bring a certain player into pick and roll. That's why everybody is after, the 6'7" athletic wings who can guard 5 positions, because then you just switch and you negate that advantage. Our teams our championship teams were really not too vulnerable to that. And because of our versatility and size across the board. But yeah, that's the way to attack switching, is to try to find the weak link and then attack from there. And that's what everybody around the league is doing.
Otto's been so great at all the small things. It seems like he's always so high in the plus minus and everything. How important is it to kind of unlock his shot with the way that he can stretch the floor?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is to space the floor. Memphis is super athletic as a team. So if there are a lot of bodies in the paint, it becomes tougher to create offense. So the spacing is crucial. Otto's a guy who provides that spacing and passing and screening. He understands the game. He understands how to get himself open, how to get other people open. So he's been great. And, the other night, I think he might have taken 1-3 and maybe made 1 or 2 shots in the game. He was a plus 17. So he just, he knows how to impact the game, whether he's scoring or not.
You guys don't hunt mismatches as much, I think, as I see other teams. Is that a fair assessment? It seems like you run your sets as opposed to just trying to find it.
Yeah, I think that's probably in the regular season for sure. The playoffs come and you definitely seek some of those matchups out because playoff defense is better. Especially after you get past the first round, now you're dealing with, 8 of the top teams in the league, and most of them are really good defensively. So I would say most of the regular season we just play, and then, we have to adjust from there.
And what's the thought behind that?
Behind
not hunting for those?
The ball can stick. You can get stagnant. A lot of our game is the fluidity, the flow. A lot of our game is based on having multiple passers. I've always been a believer, and, I learned this from Phil Jackson, that when every guy gets to touch the ball and be part of things, that guy's going to play harder and play better defensively and feel more like he actually matters. And so the triangle provided that, and something we really believe in here. The more people who are touching the ball, more flow to the game, the better everybody feels about himself. Great. Thank you. Thanks.